Good morning. It's just after 5 a.m. here in Calgary, and we're going to do a practice that has a lot of lunging and then moving towards extended side angle, a little bit of triangle, just exploring this relationship between the leg bones, the pelvis, the spine, and of course the ribs and the feet, and really the shoulder and the neck and the head. But I put a note in the body of this around this is not a great practice and not recommended if you've got SI joint issues. And here is why. Is because we're going to be doing a lot of our movements are going to be doing one leg's doing one thing, the other leg is doing the other thing. And in some cases, one leg's doing more than one thing that's different than the other leg. When that happens, the tissue, we're doing different things to the tissue that is connecting the leg bone towards the pelvis and the SI into the sacrum, and that can have impact on how the SI joint functions and how the SI joint feels. So that's a big reason why I don't recommend this particular practice for people with SI joint issues, and I highly recommend that you scroll back through some of these other videos that are titled Back to Basics and use those as really exploratory practices to understand how your legs and your pelvis and your spine and your rib cage and your breathing all work together and how they contribute or correlate to what you're feeling through your SI. Okay? So that's just a little blurb there around why I'm not recommending this particular practice. So let's get rolling. I'm recommending practice for people with SI pain. Other than that, I recommend this practice. So we're going to use 2 blocks today, and we're just going to place those off to the side. Some of this will have your knee on the floor. So if you need to have some padding on the floor, then do grab something to put underneath your knee. Okay? We're going to start with cat and cow to begin. So hands and knees on the floor. And just feel your hands and feel your legs. And let's just start to move into a gentle back bend one way. And then coming forward through your spine the other way. And the articulating joints here are legs and pelvis through the spine. The rib cage moves around that shoulder joint. And then you can play around with your breathing here, where you're inhaling when you're coming through this phase, and you are exhaling as you're coming through this phase. And see if you can just feel what it is that you feel as you move through this extension and flexion movement of cat and cow. So this part is our extension coming into cow and into flexion coming into cat. Great. Okay, now lovely. Let's come into a lunge, our first one, and bring one foot forward and just have your hands on the block if you need them. And just be here. And just take a peek back to your toes and notice if your toes are angling inward or outward or if they're going straight back, and just take a peek back to see what they're doing. It's really interesting how we can kind of cock our foot and our ankle and that those toes can slide in, and how that changes what you feel up and through your hip. Yeah, so it's pretty nifty little deviation or compensation that we can sometimes do. Most of it unbeknownst to us. Okay, and let's go to the other side. And we're just using this as a little bit of a baseline to notice what it is that you feel. And if you are like me and it's just after 5 a.m., it's an early morning for you, just notice how you have been with your rest and your sleep. Let's come back to your lunge. Now we're going to move forward and then we're going to move back. And then if you're watching this at another time of the day, so you might be in Europe right now and it's later in the morning, or it's late at night perhaps in Australia. I may have gotten that time wrong for the Aussies. Or you might be watching a replay of this. But in any event, wherever you are, Just notice how your body has been, how your mind is, where your thoughts are, as you move yourself back and forth. And really think about this as being hip, knee, knee, hip, and ankle, obviously. But the spine is mostly staying the same as we're moving through the hip and the knee. And I'm not kind of like pumping this like so. I'm just moving with an awareness of what I'm feeling through here. And my foot, I'm not bringing my foot up. I'm keeping my foot on the floor. Now you could bring the foot up if you want. Okay, and then other side. And just notice the breathing. Easy, easy breathing. Okay, so now we're going to move into, I'm going to face you this way, okay? So come a bit closer here. So we're going to come forward, good, and we're going to bring that leg, we're going to bring one hand on the inside, knee comes forward, we're going to circle the hip. So you see how I'm circling the hip here? Yeah, so now if I circle back a bit here, so you can see it from this angle. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, now if I come back into this orientation, forward, rolling that hip. So moving this and then rolling that hip. So the movement is through the hip. Now you might be looking at my knee as to where my knee is, but I want you to focus in on this movement at the leg bone and the hip socket. And you might be going slower than me, which is A-okay. You find your rhythm that makes sense for you. Okay, good. And now let's come onto the other side. Really pay attention to that leg bone movement in the hip socket. So often in many practices, it's spoken about the hips doing the movement, and yet the hips not doing the movement. So I want you to really bring your attention to that femur in the hip socket and become really clear on how it is or is not moving. And the more clear that you can be, the greater clarity that you have, then the more you can change, right? So even if there's some osteoarthritis in the hip, you can make a change to the tissue around it. Okay. Good. Okay, now let's come forward. And we're going to come up into standing. And we're going to take the legs wide, rotate them at the hip sockets, right? So sometimes we cue this as take the toes out. I want you to think about bringing the leg bones in the hip sockets and starting to lower yourself down. We often call this goddess, or in some circles it's horseman. But the idea here is ankles, knees, and hips. And just think about the tempo between the hips, the knees, and the ankles. Okay, we're just going to hang out here for just a few breaths. Get your legs just a little bit like, oh, hello, hello, hello. Now while you're here, feel where your center of the heel is, the ball of your foot, and the base of your pinky toe. You don't need to, you could move towards and feel them, but I just want you to get a sense of where they are on your mat or on the floor. Relax your toes, relax through your ribcage, let your legs take you. Really and truly let your legs take you. Okay, now bring your hands behind your legs and press your legs into your hands. So now you're doing movement of the leg bone and the hip socket. Okay, and then come up and take a break for a moment. And let's go back down again. Now you can always take a break. You don't need to come down as low as I'm coming. You check in with yourself, but I'm just you can play with what's available to you. Now I'm not saying go to an edge or push it. I'm not saying any of that. Let me be totally clear. What you're noticing is the tempo and the feel between your leg, like your leg and the hip, your knee and your ankle, and you're playing with what range is open and available that is serving you. So you might be able to go all the way, but your knee bugs you. That's not appropriate. So find the place that you're actually feeling good. And there might be some strengthening in your legs, but distinguish that between like knee strain, ITB issues, SI, back, foot, plantar fasciitis. Like notice any of those symptoms increasing, you're going too far if they are. So find the place where that's not happening. That might be back up here, that might be here. The distance does not measure your worth as a human being. We need to serve our body so our body can serve us. All right, I had you there for a little bit. Okay, come back up and be here. Just take a breather. Okay, now we're going to come forward a little bit. Just notice where you're at. Forward, come back up, and then come back down. And we're going to rotate this back leg, this leg, and we're going to come into a warrior two. Lovely, and then back up again. Okay, and then rotate. Now the aim, we want to try to keep that pelvis as level as we can so that we don't do something like this to set ourselves up to warrior two. So rotating, really playing around with that leg and hip. Yeah? It can sometimes be the difference that makes all the difference for people. Okay, lovely. Good, and then come back. Okay, now we're gonna come back down. We're gonna do a little bit of a lunge again. Let's just see where that lunge is at for you. This time I want you to take your toes under, pressing the heel back. And now come back this way and come back forward. Okay, and then come back up here. Take your fingers behind you, interlace your hands. Good, now, when you're ready, come up, back forward, and sit down. Good, and then back up. Okay, grab your blocks. Other side, lunge. Toes under, come back, come forward, hands back. All right, and then lift up. Okay, come back to here. And rotate those legs out, and let's come back into your goddess. And now notice what you're experiencing. Hands come behind, legs pressing into your hands. Good, and then come on up. Okay, let's just take a breather in Tadasana. Notice what you now experience through your hips and your legs to your feet, and the resulting what's further up in here. So just check in if you added any extra more tension, what the level of ease is. Just notice between those parts. And then come back. Okay, and let's come back into a warrior two again. So again, pelvis is level. And let's play around with a bit of an extended side angle. This arm can come up if you'd like. You can also come back into a position like this. You play around with where your arms are, how they work, and what you want to do with them. I want you to pay attention right through to here. Yeah, so my legs and my pelvis are mostly staying the same. Good. And then from here, let's just play around with straightening through the knee and through the hip, and bada bing, into triangle we go. Right, you can bring the arms up if you'd like. Nice. Feel your feet. Watch the knee and the hip come back into extended side and then into warrior two. Good. And then back up. Good. Other side. Lovely, lovely. And extended. You can bring the arms into it if you'd like. Good, and then back. But again, the main focus here is that the legs are where they are and the torso is doing the nice movement. Your arms can be into it if you would like. And then hip and knee and ankle, and boom, here we are. But you're moving with this awareness, not really worrying or concerned about this thing called triangle, but just playing around with that movement. Be aware the bottoms of your feet come back into warrior two. Up, good. There we go, and come into standing. All right, let's notice where you're at. Lovely. Okay, ankle comes up onto knee and have a little sit. Lovely, okay. And then ankle up onto knee and have a little sit. Whoop. And a little wave. Good. And then come up and stand and have a little sit. And just notice as you're sitting, if you want to sit this way, if you really think about sitting as if you're sitting into a chair. If you want to bring your arms up, you can. Lovely. And then come on up. Okay, let's scoot yourselves back down to the floor. Coming back. And on your back, just now feel what it is that you feel. And bring one knee to your belly. Hold on to that with your fingers laced around either above the knee or below. You can straighten out the opposite leg if you'd like. It's totally up to you. And then bring the other leg up. So you're coming into a Supta Parang, but we're holding on to the leg. And then bending the knee back down. And let's take that leg across the body now. And then coming on back. Good. And other side. Knee comes up toward your belly. You can straighten out this other leg if you'd like. And then foot comes to the sky. And then bending that knee, coming into a twist. Okay, and then coming on back. Lovely. Straighten the legs out into Savasana. And now just notice what it is that you feel. And you can be here in Shavasana for as long as you would like. Coming into your breathing, noticing the sensations that exist. And then when you're ready, and you're ready to roll on over, when you're ready to come up and move on with the rest of your day, then just take 5 breaths just to transition between where you are and where you're about to go to. You have a really, really great day today, and we will see you tomorrow. Mwah! Take good care.